I never thought my heartbeat would echo inside a palace made of living stone, but that was exactly what was happening. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, pulsing faintly with the rhythm of the vast alien city surrounding it, and every vibration carried the weight of terror. Courtiers scattered like frightened insects as the sound rolled through the air, deep, guttural, and furious. The Queen of the Veileth roared, a sound so powerful it made my chest rattle. Her carapace gleamed under the shifting light of the hall, black and iridescent like oil on water, her towering form casting a shadow that swallowed me whole. Her dozen eyes burned with molten anger, locking on me as though she could pierce through flesh, bone, and spirit with a glance. "My sons are missing," she thundered, and the entire chamber dropped to its knees. Generals with spines of steel bent their heads low, their claws digging into the stone floor. Advisors and priests cowered, their antennae trembling in fear. Soldiers, who had slaughtered entire colonies without blinking, now shook under the weight of her voice. I stood there, out of place, a single human in a hall designed for monsters. My knees wanted to buckle, but I forced myself upright. Not because I was braver than the rest of them, but because I didn't have a choice. My chest was too heavy, not from fear, but from the warmth pressed against it. Two small bodies shifted, their alien claws tightening in my shirt, their breathing slow and steady. The princes, her sons, were curled against me, sleeping soundly, oblivious to the storm of fury around them. The Queen roared again, demanding to know who dared take them. No one spoke. No one dared. And in that silence, I realized the impossible truth. The galaxy's most feared children were lying peacefully on a human's chest, mine. It began 3 nights ago, though the memory feels like something torn out of a dream. I had been working late, bent over the guts of a broken atmospheric relay station on the Empire's frontier. The job was simple enough: replace a few corroded circuits, recalibrate the transmitters, and try not to breathe too deeply of the metallic dust that clung to every surface. My ship was the only human vessel docked within 100 leagues, and when the shift ended, I collapsed into my bunk, exhausted beyond reason. Sleep came heavy, almost drugged, and I expected nothing more than a restless night before the next day's repairs. When I woke, the weight on my chest was wrong. For one breathless second I thought it was equipment that had fallen, or worse, some kind of invasive pest that had crawled aboard. But when I opened my eyes, I found 2 pairs of gleaming, multifaceted eyes staring back at me. Small bodies, delicate and insectoid, with translucent carapaces that shimmered faintly in the cabin light. They weren't much bigger than human toddlers, though their mandibles clicked softly as they breathed, their claws gripping my shirt with surprising strength. They didn't scream. They didn't try to attack. They only clung closer when I moved, making soft, trilling sounds that reminded me of kittens purring. My heart pounded, torn between terror and something else, an odd instinct to shield them. It didn't take long before I realized who they were. Every corridor in Veileth space had posters, banners, and murals of their likeness. These weren't just children. These were the royal heirs, the twin sons of the Queen herself, the bloodline that ruled an empire through fear and fire. And yet, somehow, they had chosen to fall asleep on a human. On me. The moment the princes disappeared, the empire erupted like a nest struck with fire. Rumors spread faster than the fleet could move, whispers that assassins from rival dynasties had stolen them, that human mercenaries had been paid in secret, that even the Queen's own council had betrayed her. I heard the broadcast myself, messages echoing across every relay station. Asterisk, the heirs are missing. All systems are to be searched. No ship leaves unchecked. Asterisk. Warships scoured the skies, black silhouettes blotting out the stars as they swept across the frontier. Cities were placed under curfew. Thousands of patrols marched through the streets, dragging citizens from their homes in the hope of uncovering the smallest trace. Entire colonies trembled beneath the Queen's fury, and I stayed hidden, watching all of it unfold from the shadows of a maintenance hangar. I had locked my ship down, sealing the hatch so tightly that even the most curious mechanic couldn't slip inside. The little ones never left my side. They clung to me during the day and burrowed against my chest at night, their claws pricking through my shirt as they sought the rhythm of my heartbeat. They refused food unless I fed them myself, pushing away the nutrient gels left behind in storage and insisting on the simple fruit packs I carried for long assignments. I kept asking myself why. Why me? Why a human engineer, barely a flicker in the galaxy's politics, chosen over an empire of caretakers, guards, and generals. The more I tried to pry them from my arms, the more they wailed in that strange, high-pitched language. And when they finally quieted, they would fall asleep against me again, as though I was the only safe place in a universe tearing itself apart to find them. It was only a matter of time before they found me. The Empire's net was tightening, every hangar, every maintenance base swept with scanners and squads of soldiers. I had been careful, too careful, perhaps. I rationed my movements, crept between shadows, silenced every system on my ship that might draw attention. But when the blast doors hissed open one night and the beam of a searchlight cut through the dark, I knew my luck had run dry. The patrol froze at the sight before them. Not because of me, I was just another human in a grease-stained jumpsuit, but because of the two small princes curled against my chest. They weren't frightened of the soldiers, only annoyed that the sudden noise had disturbed their rest. Their carapaces clicked softly as they stirred, and then, with a chirping trill, they pressed closer into me as if to say asterisk, this is where we belong. Asterisk. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his mandibles tense, claws outstretched to take the children. That's when the princes hissed. Not playfully, not in fear, but with the sharp, guttural defiance of their kind. The patrol leader stumbled back, his antennae stiff with shock. The heirs of the Queen had chosen to growl at their own protectors and cling tighter to a human. I felt their little claws dig into me, not in panic but in stubborn refusal. It struck me then with brutal clarity. They trusted me more than anyone else in the room. And that terrified the Valeth soldiers. Their empire was built on obedience, on fear, on bloodlines that could not be questioned. Yet here were the future rulers, defying all of it for the comfort of a human heartbeat. They didn't arrest me immediately. They didn't know whether they even could. They dragged me through corridors that pulsed like the inside of some vast, living beast, soldiers flanking me on every side. My wrists were bound, though the princes clung so fiercely to my chest that no one dared tear them away. Every step echoed with tension, guards glaring at me as if I were a heretic, others whispering in disbelief at the sight of the heirs wrapped around a human like hatchlings to their broodmother. When the great doors to the throne hall split apart, the weight of the moment nearly crushed me. The Queen loomed above all, a towering presence of obsidian armor and firelit eyes, her mandibles trembling with fury. She didn't need to speak. The silence of the court was proof enough of her rage. When she finally roared, the sound shook the marrow in my bones. Asterisk, you dare steal my blood. Asterisk. The generals called for my execution immediately. Their voices overlapped like a chorus of blades. Tear him apart, strip his flesh, burn what remains. They spat accusations, painting me as a thief, a kidnapper, a corrupter of royalty. My mouth was dry, words trapped in my throat. What could I say that wouldn't end with my head rolling across the stone? And yet, when the gods tried to separate the princes from me, they resisted with a strength that shocked everyone. Their mandibles clicked angrily, their claws latching deeper into my shirt. One of them let out a high, keening wail, not of fear, but of defiance. The other buried his face against my chest and whispered in their chittering tongue. Somehow, impossibly, I understood the sound. A single word, soft but unmistakable. Asterisk father. Asterisk. The hall fell silent. Even the Queen's roar seemed to choke and die in her throat. The silence after that single word stretched on like an eternity. 1,000 eyes bore into me, waiting for the Queen's command. I could feel the princes trembling against me, but not with fear, with determination. Their claws refused to release me, and their voices, small but steady, echoed that same word again. Asterisk father. Asterisk. The Queen's eyes blazed. Her mandibles clicked once, sharp and deliberate, and for a moment I thought she would crush me where I stood. One gesture was all it would take. I had seen her flatten generals for lesser offenses. Yet she hesitated. Her gaze flicked to her sons, and in that instant I saw something I hadn't expected from the most feared being in the galaxy: doubt. The generals pressed their case, demanding my blood. He has bewitched them. He has stolen their loyalty, they cried. But the princes silenced them with a simple gesture. They pressed their foreheads, hard, ridged, and alien, against my chest, clinging tighter than ever. Their bodies vibrated with a low, resonant trill, a sound I'd come to recognize as comfort, as belonging. The queen's breath rattled through the chamber. The fury in her voice was still there, but beneath it was something rawer, something fragile. Why do you choose him?" she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Her towering frame seemed to sag under the weight of the question. For all her armies, her fleets, her empire built on terror, she couldn't force her sons to look at her the way they looked at me. For the first time since I'd entered her throne hall, the queen didn't look like an unstoppable monster. She looked like a mother on the verge of losing what she cherished most. And she didn't know how to stop it. That moment reshaped everything. The queen did not roar again. Instead, her massive shoulders lowered, the deadly spines along her back folding inward as though the weight of the galaxy had settled on her carapace. Her sons had chosen, and no blade, no decree, no empire could undo it. The court stood frozen, uncertain whether to breathe, waiting for her judgment. When she finally spoke, her voice was stripped of rage. It was quieter, yet heavier than thunder. "You have given them what no warrior, no tutor, no bloodline has ever managed. Safety. Peace." The admission rippled through the chamber like a tremor. Generals exchanged horrified glances. Priests whispered prayers, antennae twitching. But I only stood there, stunned, the princes still clutching me as if I had always been theirs. The queen rose from her throne, lowering her colossal head until her burning eyes were level with mine. For the first time, there was no threat in them, only sorrow, and something I dared to believe was respect. "If they see you as father," she said, "then you are bound to them, bound to me, and bound to this empire." I should have felt trapped, condemned to a cage of politics and alien ceremony. Instead, I felt the prince's steady breaths against me, their trust anchoring me in place. Perhaps this was not a prison. Perhaps it was a bridge. Word spread across the stars within days. The heirs of the Valeth had chosen a human guardian. Empires that once feared Oath for its weapons now whispered of something stranger, something more dangerous. Humans were not just survivors, soldiers, or engineers. We carried something the galaxy had long forgotten. We carried the power to be family. And no empire could stand unchanged in the face of that.